Here we're going to talk about the basics of factoring a trinomial. This is not trinomial practice. This is just talking about the basics, what it is, how it works. There are other videos that will go through actual practice and breaking down the process of different types of trinomials. First things first, remember that a trinomial means there are three terms. So when we are factoring three terms, let me back that up. Anytime we're factoring at all, the first thing you should always look for is a greatest common factor. Make that your habit, that if it says factor, the first thing you look for is, do your terms share any common factors? And of course here you can say, no, they don't all share a variable, and we have a 1, a 7, and a 12. No common factors. So our goal to factor this is to find two binomials that when we do I call it a double distribution, it comes out nicely, right? We're basically, some people call it foiling. I'm not a huge fan of that, but factoring is unfoiling. So we're trying to find, and I'm going to kind of break this down here, these first two terms, we're going to multiply them. Let's call them M and N. So we want M times N to give me our first term. We'll call that x squared. Now the last spots, the last two, we'll call them Q and R. Q times R is going to give me my last terms. So you can see that the first terms give you the first term. The last terms give you the last term. Do you see how that works? Okay, so we need to multiply to get those. Now for fun, I'm just going to throw them in. There's only one way to break down x squared, to like really break it down, and that's x times x. This, we're starting with an easy one. Now for 12, we can break that down 1 times 12, 2 times 6, 3 times 4. Pick one. I'm going to pick 3 times 4 because I know what the answer is. And this is positive. That means I either need both of my numbers to be positive or both of my numbers to be negative. Because remember, a negative times a negative does yield a positive, where a positive times a positive also yields a positive. Easy way to check. Look at the sign of your middle term. It's positive, so all of my terms are going to be positive. Now, you should always check your work. Until you become maybe an expert, you should check what's happening. By checking, this is where the double distribution comes in. We take our first term and multiply throughout. So x times x is x squared. X times 4 is 4x. Then I take my second term and I multiply it through. 3 times x is 3x. 3 times 4 is 12. When I simplify my like terms in the middle, I end up with x squared plus 7x plus 12. Because that is what I started with, I have factored correctly. That means my answer is x plus 3 times x plus 4. Now, it's very possible you're going to do things and you're going to be incorrect at times, and that's okay. And then you're going to just get better and you're going to practice. One thing that I would like to throw out at this point is that multiplication facts are so important when factoring. If you can multiply very easily with just, the basics in your head, it's going to make the factoring process a lot easier. So we're now going to factor just one more, talking through this, when the coefficient of your first term is greater than 1. Because factoring isn't all that bad once you get used to it when your coefficient of your first term is 1. So same process here. You say, okay, I want to break this down and I need these first two, well, again, m and n, to multiply to be 2x squared. And then the last two, I need to multiply to give me negative 21. Now, you'll notice this last term is negative. So when I'm thinking through 1, 21, 3, and 7, these are my options here, people. One of them has to be negative. And so you can think through of, okay, I need something to be negative. So I'm just going to naturally pick the bigger number to be negative. I might be wrong, but we're going to try it. Okay, I always like to at least have a starting point. So I'm going to break down 2x squared. Well, 2 times 1 is 2, and x is x squared. So that can only really be broken down one way. But now I have to decide where am I putting things? So I'm going to I always choose whatever's kind of closest together unless I can see it very quickly. So I'm going to go -7 plus 3. No real reason, just want to try that. And now again, we check. 2x times x is 2x squared. 2x times 3 is 6x. Then I come this way. -7x, -21. I check my middle terms, -1x. That is not what we started with. This is not correct. Now, some people like to be very systematic about their checking. I'm a big fan of saying, okay, if 7 and 3 didn't go there, let's just flip them and see what happens. So let's make this a +3 and a -7. And yes, this is the process of factoring. Until you get really good at it, you're probably going to have to do this more than once. And if you're on a piece of paper, don't even erase. Just do it right next to it. That way you can see what you've done. So let's check again. I have 2x squared. I have -14x. Then I go to my +3. +3x -21. Look at my middle terms. So I have 2x squared -11x -21. That's what we wanted. So our final answer here, I always write too big so I run out of space, is 2x plus 3, x minus 7. And if you're not checking your work, start doing it. It'll go very quickly because you're going to multiply like a beast, and it will help you avoid mistakes. And that is the basics of factoring a trinomial.